So, next time when you watch a Hollywood movie and clap your hands, in which a great Britisher is fighting with Hitler like a hero, then do remember that the cost of that fight was taken out of your ancestors' backs. Next time if you see someone admiring West countries, then do ask him that from year 1765 to 1945, going forward, this changes the history of India. You will read the history of some business houses, those who talk a lot, that this was our business model. We made our business in this way. Actually, they were all the puppets of the Britishers. The whole West talks a lot about free trade, but they haven't mentioned a single word in the Cambridge Economic History of India. It is very shocking that even to this day, the district administrative officer is called a collector. The whole modern capitalist global system of today is based on this loot. The money for theft comes out of the MORI. The Britishers took so much money by looting, but today, their economy. Whenever we talk about period before 1947, we say that the Britishers colonized India, made it a slave, whereas in actuality, India was made a slave by a private company. But the thing is, how can a private company make such a big country its slave? What would have happened at that time that a company made by 125 people with just £70,000 and made a whole country its slave? You can ask the people around you. You will hear different things in bits and pieces, but there are very few people who know the actual story of how India was looted by a private company under a plan. And then the same company was bought by an Indian, Sanjeev Mehta. Whether you are in India or outside of India, how were we made slaves? This thing comes up in some discussion. That's why this video was made in such a way that, whether someone is young or adult, after watching this video once, you can go to any corner of the world and have a reasonable discussion with anyone. So, all these things started in the year 1599, when spices were a very high-value commodity. This black pepper, or black pepper, had such a strong impact that merchants called it black gold. It was compared to gold, and at that time, Dutch had more control on the spice trade, and even in Britain, Dutch used to supply. It was their monopoly. Now, in the mid-year 1599, Dutch increased 5 shillings on black pepper. Shilling was the currency of that time. So, Britishers get very angry about this kind of manipulation, and after a month, that is, on 24th of September 1599, 24 rich merchants gather in the Hall Street of the City of London during the daytime and decide that the Dutch are doing this manipulation. We have to trade on our own. And then they convince 125 shareholders, collect £72,000 and form a company, which was called the Governor and Company of Merchants of London, trading into the East Indies. So they make the company, and then they had to take approval from Queen Elizabeth I, because they could not start trading in the world by deciding like this. So, after 3 months, that is, on 31st December 1599, Queen Elizabeth I gives them a royal charter that you go and start all these things. The royal charter meant a return order, that is, a royal order. The approval of this royal charter meant that the East India Company, which is made in England, could go to different places in the world and buy the spices and other commodities at a low price and sell them back to Europe. In a way, they got a trading license, like today. You get a license for import and export, exactly like that. This royal charter that Queen gave, it was given for 15 years, and a specific area was also given, that you have to go and trade in this particular area. And that area was in the east of Cape of Good Hope, and in the west of the States of Magellan. This is Cape of Good Hope, and this is the States of Magellan. From here to the whole, just left this inner area, because Britain used to do a lot of activities here. Basically, it had to be done in the East India area, so that's why the name of this company was changed to East India Company. Now, Queen already knew that other countries were also trading in this area, so there would already be a lot of competition for the East India Company. So Queen said that there would only be East India Company from England, which would go and trade here. From England, no other company would go and trade there. In case, if it does, then its goods would be confiscated. because there is already competition in those areas, and it would not be a good decision to do another competition of our own company. That would not be a good decision. That's why Queen took this decision. Now, when the East India Company goes to trade in those areas, so that it does not face any problems, Queen gave it more power than needed for this. For example, printing your own money in the area where people trade. They could make their own laws, they could have their own foreign policy, they could run courts, they could give punishments, they could have an army, they could claim jurisdiction. As an example, you can understand it in a way that one day Mukesh Ambani go to Narendra Modi and say that India needs a lot of spices. Spices are becoming very expensive, and the spices are very good and cheap in Australia. So, I will do one thing. I will make a company with a few people. I will go there and start trading. This will be very beneficial to the country. And you do not need any money, right? You just give approval to the company which we have made. Now, Modi ji give the permission. Along with that, he will also say that it will be very good for the country. That's why in that area, no other company will go apart from your company, from India, so that the competition does not happen among themselves. Along with that, Modi ji will also say that when you go there, you will trade at such a high level, you will have to keep the goods. And if you go there and trade, then you can also make the court laws according to you. So many people will work together, mistakes will be made, then you can also give punishments. And if needed, then use Australia's land as well. And don't think too much about the law of their country. Whatever happens will be seen. Just go and benefit our India. So, in a similar way, too much power was given to the East India Company as well. Now, the East India Company had to go and trade in that area. It had to cost a lot of money, and the risk was very high. And the Britishers were not that rich at that time. So they did a job. They made the East India Company like a joint stock company, meaning you don't have to work in the company. You just invest money in the company, take its stocks. When the company will get profit, then you will also get profit. Just like the way you buy shares now, exactly the same thing. The East India Company had only one objective, that to profit on its own and to make the profit of the shareholders who invested in it. Whether they have to break the rules, or there is a loss of someone, or there is a loss of humanity, they had no meaning from this. And they were not even bothered to break the rules, because they had the support of the Queen. The East India Company took a lot of risk for what it was going to do, so they were not getting workers as well. So, in the beginning, they took people from the Newgate Jail in London, and some people from the London Bedlam and the Lunatic Asylum. Now, after all these things happened, they took a ship and went to Indonesia, towards Maluku Island. And initially, they had no plan to go into India. There were a lot of spy states on Maluku Island, but when they reached here, Spanish, Portuguese, and Dutch traders were trading in this area. The United East India Company of the Dutch trader was a very big company of that area. Their army was very big. So, when the East India Company reached here, things didn't go in their favor. Dutch were already working there and East India Company was driven away. And they come back to England from there. Now after this, they make plans to go to that area again. But this time, they try to go to India. Now the Portuguese in India were trading from the year 1498. But even after that, they decide to go to India and trade. So, in the year 1608, William Hawkins, who was the diplomat of the East India Company, was given a ship named Hector. And with this ship, on 24th August 1608, they reached the Surat, India, for the first time. Before I continue the story, let me tell you a little bit about the situation of India at that time. Then we will come back to the story. At that time, if we talk about the empire in India, it was the empire of the Mughals. And the Mughals were at the peak. At the maximum place, Mughals ruled in India. This was India at that time, and this green part was the entire Mughal empire. Mughals ruled at the maximum area, and the rest of the kings ruled in the lower areas. Now the entire Mughal empire was headed by the king, and this entire Mughal empire was divided into 12 provinces, which was called province. Like today, states are divided in this way. provinces were headed by the governor, and the governor used to take the tax from the local public and pay the tax to the Mughal emperor. So this way the Mughal Empire's army was maintained, and Britain was comparatively a poor country at that time. At that time, India was considered an industrial powerhouse, and it was not a matter of one or two areas. At that time, India was a textile manufacturer in the whole world. Now, China produces 28% of the manufacturing of the whole world. At that time, India alone used to produce 25%. If you still pay attention, then the names of many clothings, shawls, pajamas, khakis, kamarband, all of these became famous all over the world at that time. And if you add the whole of Europe's economy, India's economy was bigger than that. If we compare today's standards, it was equal to $21 trillion. At that time, India was an economic powerhouse. Along with that, the Mughals were also very powerful. So India was like a superpower at that time in the whole world. Now India has advanced itself a lot in technology in the last 75 years, and everything is online, like Aadhaar card, PAN card, and thousands of government schemes. If you want to know more about all of these, then download the SECO app right now. SECO is an app where, along with government documents like Aadhaar and PAN, you can learn a lot about share market, mobile tricks, photography, online businesses, English speaking, even online earning and growing on social media. Today, more than 50 lakh users are learning something new from the SECO app. So, you also start learning by installing it. To take full advantage of the SECO app, you can become a SECO Plus member. And for that, you don't need to pay full money. You can use my special coupon code NR49, through which you will get the SECO app for only 49 rupees instead of 199. Download the SECO app today and stay ahead in the technology race. So, let's come back to the topic. On 24th August 1608, William Hawkins reaches Surat, India. After reaching the face, William realized that Portuguese traders already have a lot of understanding of Mughals, and they have been trading for a long time. And William also realized that if he wants to trade here, then he will have to impress the Mughals and take their permission. And at that time, Agra was the capital of India, and all the approvals were received from there. So, William gets up from Surat and reaches Agra directly, and somehow tries to talk to Jahangir. And to impress Jahangir, he became very mischievous. Like he was white, but he wore an Afghan dress. And he was trying to speak in a broken Turkish language and took many gifts. The first thing was that the Mughals did not want to annoy the Portuguese traders by working with the Britishers. And the second thing was that the Mughals considered the Britishers very rude. So William did not entertain them at all. When they were leaving, William gifted them an Armenian Christian wife. After this, they come to Surat by ship. But the local officials of Surat sent them back in fear of the Portuguese traders. Here, the officials of East India Company were trying to make some arrangements with the Mughals, and on 24th March 1603, Queen Elizabeth I dies in Britain, and on the same day, King James became King of England. After this, the directors of East India Company meet King James and request him that if they send an official diplomat, then their matter will be taken more seriously, and their work may be done. King James agrees to this, and on 18th of September 1615, an official ambassador, Sir Thomas Roe, is sent to Surat by ship. Sir Thomas was a smart man. He did not make any mistakes like William Hawkins.
He met Jahangir and he explained the benefits of trading with England. He explained that when East India Company will come here and trade, then it will give you money to trade per annum. This will benefit you as well.
Jahangir understands Thomas's point, and after trying for 3 years, Jahangir publishes a royal order in which East India Company is allowed to trade in a limited area, and in return, East India Company will give you a year's salary. So first of all, let's allow the factory to be opened in Surat with limited trading rights. Now, after Sir Thomas returns to England, the directors of East India Company explain to him that the Mughals are very strong. There is no option to fight them. So instead of going into the land, trade through all the seaports and buy things from India at cheap rates and sell them in Europe at a higher price. So East India's work had started in India, but their ambitions were very big. So they talked to the Sultan of Golconda and took permission for Andhra Pradesh's Machilipatnam and opened a second factory. After this, in year 1620, they opened a third factory in Patna. But it didn't work, so they had to close it in a year. East India Company was getting less options in India in the beginning, but in the next 20 years, wherever they got opportunities, they increased their trading volume very quickly, and the area they were in, they were strengthening their hold, because wherever they were starting trade, there was also development in that area, so people were also settling in that area. After this, the year comes, 1640. Until then, they had already settled in. They realized that the Vijayanagara Empire was getting very weak, so they didn't fight anywhere till now. They just looked at the area and gave the king different ways of trading options. So they did the same thing with the Vijayanagara king. They didn't fight, they convinced him that how they could benefit. And they went to that area and talked about trading. And after listening to the benefit, the king gave them a 3-mile-long area. And this area was a fishing village, which was called Madras Patnam. The king gave the area because so many people were involved in trading. So an area was decided, and their living arrangements were separated, so that the common people didn't have any issues. So when they got an area here, they built forts, and the reason given was that so much stuff was kept here. So to ensure its security, it was very important to build a fort. And the fort that was built in this area was named after the Britishers, Fort St. George, and then in this area, some more parts were added, and later its name was Madras. So they traded here for many years. After that, the year came in 1662. And the King of England at that time was Charles II. He married the Portuguese Queen Catherine. So they got an island in the Dowry in India, which was occupied by the Portuguese. This island was called Bumbi, like today we call it Mumbai. And when this area was given to Britain in the Dowry, then it was very easy for the East India Company to trade here. So this way, Bombay also comes to the East India Company. Now the Britishers were trading and earning, but everyone was trading at the seaport, because the Mughals were not letting them enter properly. At that time, the area of Bengal consisted Odisha, Bengal, Bangladesh and Bihar. At that time, this area was not only in India, but also in the most prosperous areas of the world. The crops were very good and the textile manufacturing of Dhaka was on the rise at that time. So this was the reason why the East India Company had always dreamt of trading in Bengal. And this is what changes the history of India. At that time, the governor of Bengal, Shahista Khan, who was the uncle of the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, and did not like the East India Company much. So especially to convince him to trade well in Bengal, the East India Company sent William Hedges. And William was very successful in this. And by making agreements, trade also starts at a small level in Bengal. Now what happens is that in the year 1681, the director of the East India Company changes. His name was Joshua Child. So this Joshua Child was a little arrogant. So before this, the agreements that William had made to start the trade in Bengal, he did not follow it properly. And the governor of Bengal was not very happy about this. So he increased the tax by 2% and made it 3.5%. Joshua Child was a little arrogant. He refused to accept it. And he even threatened that if you increase the tax in this way, then we will not pay the tax and we will capture Chittagong as well. But the governor does not listen to them and applies the tax. And all these things were going on in the year 1686. And Joshua gets so angry that he thinks of attacking for this thing. And from London, 19 warships, 200 cannons and 600 soldiers were called, and he attacked on the Mughals. This happened for the first time when the East India Company, apart from greed and deception, waged a direct war. But the Mughals were very strong. They defeated the East India Company in a bad way, and the people who worked for them, they were made prisoners in Surat and Dhaka. And their factories, Hooghly, Patna, Kasim Bazar, Masulipattnam and Vishakhapatnam, they captured all these factories and closed the Surat factory. And they captured the trade in Bombay. And this was the time when the East India Company realized that they made a very big mistake. All their hard work was wasted. But they were very clever. They did not show ego, but started apologizing. They even fell at their feet. They apologized for many years. This was a French painting at that time, in which they are apologizing to the Aurangzeb. Now the Mughals got used to the tax money that came from trade. And then after a few years, in 1690, they are forgiven, but they are charged with 1.5 lakh rupees. And after this particular time, the East India Company quietly trades for many years and waits for the right time. Now the year comes 1707, and this year Aurangzeb dies. Now after their death, the Mughal emperor becomes very weak, and the back-to-back emperor were changing. After Aurangzeb, Azam Shah came and became the Mughal emperor. After some time, Shah Alam I came and became the Mughal emperor. Then Jahandar Shah came, and then Farrukh Shah became the emperor. This was going on for the next 10 years, and the Mughal Empire became very weak. Now after this, the year comes 1717, and at that time, the Mughal emperor was Farrukh. Now as I told you that the East India Company wanted to trade in Bengal from the beginning, because they used to trade from here and earn a lot. Now for this, they started sending back-to-back gifts to Emperor Farrukh. And William Hamilton was a surgeon of the East India Company. He cured a disease of Farrukh. Now with this, Farrukh was very impressed. And on the request of the East India Company, Farrukh sent an order to the governor of Bengal that the East India Company will trade for free, meaning that the import and export will not be taxed separately. And